everybody. Welcome to the No Name Music Cast. My name's Tim, and this is
Joy.
And once again, I'd like to thank all of our listeners, our new listeners. We got some stats from our podcast consolidator Buzzsprout this week that were very encouraging. We have grown our listenership, and thank you to everyone who listens.
And for those who can't see us, Tim just watched me wave when you was saying that, like you guys could see me.
I mean, we do post some of this stuff up on YouTube. If you go onto YouTube and look for the No Name Music Cast, sometimes if we do CD of the weeks, I put them up there. And recently we've been doing music news segments, and those have been posted up on YouTube too. So if you want to see what we look like sitting in our respective rooms while we do it, it's there. And plus, the content that gets posted to YouTube typically happens before it hits the actual podcast world. So a little pro tip for you.
It's like our own little Patreon. We don't have a Patreon. Don't come for us, internet. I don't owe Patreon any money, but I just thought it was funny because Tim went, and this is it. I just waved and I'm like, they can't see me.
Maybe I need to isolate that and make that into a GIF or something. I don't know.
It's like Joy's arm going like this. Anyway.
Well, fabulous. So we're going to start this episode with music news. And I believe, Joy, you have a couple of stories for us.
I do. So one is a Miss Madonna. Have you ever heard of her?
I think so.
So apparently there was a big thing about her money. Well, it is her money. Her catalog going up for bid. Have you heard about this, Tim?
I haven't, but it seems to be a very popular thing where a lot of artists who've been out there for a long time are selling their catalogs of all their music, all their creative work for huge amounts of money and selling it off to media companies because I suppose they think, well, they're older and they could use the money and it's guaranteed and all that kind of stuff.
Well, she said, no.
Oh.
So Madonna herself, so here's what the article says. So the whole thing is she refuses to sell her rights to anything, which does that surprise you knowing Madonna in some weird way? Not really.
Yeah, maybe not.
I mean, think about it for a second, Tim. Is it really that weird? No. So anyway, the article says Madonna herself struck a deal with Warner Records in 2021 to bring her entire catalog under the label's umbrella. But this agreement also allowed her more freedom to oversee and curate reissue specials, releases, and more. So basically, she did this in a way that she didn't have to sell her rights off.
Okay.
And so her whole thing was, and she was I put my foot in the door and said, no one's going to tell me my story but me, very Madonna, and basically said, no, I'm not doing this. This was her preemptive strike to not do what the other artists were doing. Her words, not mine, of course.
Okay. Well, good on you, Madonna. She's obviously got herself a good deal. But as I said, I've heard of a lot of... Who was the last one who did it? I think it was Bob Dylan, I think.
I think we were talking about it, yeah.
Yeah, he sold off his entire catalogue. And I think the Beach Boys brand got sold off to a certain organisation. And it's, it seems to be a very popular thing to do.
I'm one of those people that I love for artists to feel very empowered and want to control themselves, right, Tim? Mm-hmm. So I get that. But on the flip side, it's very Madonna for me as a whole to be the person who's like, no, I'm not doing that. Because I don't know why I whispered. I don't know why Madonna would whisper. But it's very Madonna for me to be aggressive in that sense. Because while me and Tim have talked about it, there are artists who are artists. And then there are artists who are a brand or like a spectacle or like a whole orchestra, right? Mm-hmm. And for me, Madonna is one of those people who is a spectacle. And I don't know. That's a bad way of saying it. But she's one of those people... that I feel is very in tune with their brand. And the ones we've talked about are like Elvis, Michael Jackson, Prince. It's not that they're just musicians. There's a whole orchestra around them, right? Mm-hmm. So I think that that's her way of controlling it. I also feel Madonna is just a very direct person. And so she's very much like wanting to be in control of her world. And that's okay because she's Madonna and she can do what she wants.
Exactly. Well, as I said, good on you, Madonna.
I like how that literally was very round circle, went back all around. But I got to the point of she's Madonna and she does what she wants. All right. I have one more, Tim. It's just a little simple thing that I saw. And I don't know how to say this guy's name. Tim May. It's Mo Osen, legendary Warner Brothers record executive behind Hendrix and the Kinks. Apparently he died.
Oh,
95.
How old was he?
He was 95 years old. So,
well, I mean, he lived a good life. And what artists did you say that he was responsible for? Did he discover them or sign them? Or
So he is a legendary record exec. So he's a record exec who ran Warner/Reprise Records for over 30 years and worked with the Kinks, Jimi Hendrix, Neil Young, and Joni Mitchell. He died on Sunday, so the 1st, of natural causes. That's not the word. Causes, everyone.
Causes.
I don't know why that was hard for me to say. He was 95 years old, and he's basically an architect behind modern music business, is what they're saying. So for him, passing away, he kind of revolutionized the culture shifting in the industry. He was a big person who affected the way modern day music record execs act. So he passed away on the 1st, and I thought that was important to mention.
Well, there we are. Well, rock in peace, sir. That's all I would say.
Well, his first name is Mo, and his last name is Austin. I don't know where he's from because it's kind of an interesting name, but I just thought it was worth mentioning.
Absolutely. Well, I have a couple of music news stories for you. So, David Lee Roth, the first and last singer of Van Halen, he released a new single this week.
Wow, I did not know that.
And it was called Nothing Could Have Stopped Us Back Then Anyway. And it's like a sort of acoustic guitar-driven, country-flavored song. And the lyrics are very reflective on his time in Van Halen. And all the guitar playing on it, and I believe it was co-written by the guitarist John Five, if you know who John Five is.
I do, actually. That's something I am aware of. Yeah. I hadn't heard that, though. I felt like that should be more mainstream.
Yeah, and if those of you who don't know, John Five was Marilyn Manson's guitar player, and he now plays guitar for Rob Zombie. But he has made music with David Lee Roth over the years, and I believe they actually have a complete album that has yet to be released. And I mean, he has worked on tracks that have been released, but as I said, this track was actually recorded a couple of years ago, but Dave felt it was right to get it released. And in it, he talks, and it's very reflective of the time in Van Halen. He talks about the time when somebody pinned a tablecloth to his trousers and they were kicked out of a restaurant and they were drinking beer and eating McDonald's on a park bench and all this kind of stuff. So it's sort of a reflective piece through the eyes of Diamond Dave.
There was a lot to unpack there, but okay. I mean, I'm here for it.
But if you haven't heard that, I would check it out. I was very surprised when I heard it because it was not quite what I was expecting from Diamond Dave.
I mean, I'm down for it. I've listened. All right, Tim, you got any other music knowledge or music news, I guess we should know?
Yes, there is one big story. This is maybe the story of the week, and I'm surprised everybody is not talking about it.
You say that, but sometimes I feel like it's only you who's talking about it.
Well, the big news is you can keep your Spotifys and your Pandoras and your MySpaces and your Our Price Records and all that kind of stuff. Winamp is back.
I saw that. I don't know how I feel about it, but I saw it.
So those who don't know, Winamp is an MP3 player that was there at the very beginning of the internet, very beginning of like music downloading and all that kind of culture that went with it. Like you had your Windows Media Player, which came with your computer, and some people who had iPods would use iTunes, but for a lot of people, Winamp was the one to use, and it had the cool visualizations and it had the library management and all that sort of stuff. There's a very
distinct memory in my brain of those visualizations, by the way.
Well, the good news is that they've released a new version, and it actually just came out today.
Well, Tim, I had no clue. You were hot off the presses here, sir.
Exactly. Well, originally Winamp was bought by AOL. Believe it or
Another
not.
name that no one's heard for the last 74 years, but continue.
Exactly. And then it was shut down in 2013. And in 2014, a company called Radionomy, I can't even pronounce it. And they
Whatever.
bought Winamp, and they had ideas of turning it into a streaming service and stuff. And then it just sat there and nothing happened. And then apparently a bunch of developers who worked from them, they were going to do it during the time of the COVID, but it didn't really work out. But anyhow, today was the day when Winamp dropped. So while I was waiting for Joy to join the call, I put Winamp on my computer, and it's fair to say it's exactly the same as I remember.
I love that. I kind of want to do it now just for old time purposes. So you were saying that about some people who were the iTunes people. So one thing about iTunes, and I don't know if anybody else remembers this, they had like a lock thing on their so if you bought something through Apple or you downloaded it and somehow you uploaded it to iTunes, I don't remember all the details. It's been years. They put like a lock because it was in an MP3 or an MP4. It was like an MP5. What was it, Tim? What was that whole thing?
So what it was is at the very beginning,
when they came out with the
iTunes store, the files had DRM on them, digital rights management, which meant that you could only play your songs you purchased from iTunes using an Apple device, and you had to be signed into your account.
Unless you were Joy, who went in her files manager and figured out how to unlock that.
Yes, there were various third-party tools you could use to extract the undrm'd files. And I think I remember getting into that kind of business.
It's almost like back whenever I had MySpace and I was definitely a coder with my HTML and knew how to change the color to my background, Tim.
Yeah, and your BRs and your Ps and all that. There's a whole legion of people learning basic HTML around that time.
And none of us remember it now because we're in our 30s and our 40s and we don't have a clue, Tim.
Well, that's the problem, is that when I first started building websites, you'd do it in Notepad, and then you could just meddle with the code. But now, I mean, you've got WordPress and other such tools like that. And yes, it's good to have a basic knowledge of how HTML works, but really, if you're going to publish something that looks professional, you probably never, ever touch HTML, you never touch an FTP program, anything like that.
And then I had the audacity to marry someone who can do that, like with his eyes closed, backwards, jumping out the door. So my impressive doll I made, I never told you this story, Tim. I ran one of those stupid, like, the little shops people had and they built stuff for other people on MySpace back in the day. I was one of those people. And they were like little doll characters that me and my twin sister made for people. And it was the same HTML code. We just like changed the colors and like put different skirts on them. And Charlie is like over here. So there's a local, and I've never told this, I don't even know if I've ever told this, Tim. There is a local dog rescue near us that Charlie built their entire website for free. Just recently, not too long ago, that because they do good things. It's all volunteer. Like, they don't make any money. They're a nonprofit. And Charlie loves doing this kind of stuff. Charlie, my husband, by the way, for people who are listening. And there's no way he touched any of what we're talking about, Tim. Like, and he hates when you see those websites that are definitely like the Wix-based ones or whatever, where everything is like, and he's got me so prone to it because I'll be looking at websites I'll know because like they'll have like the bars. You know what I'm talking about, Tim? Like one color, then the next color, then like each segment is so like Charlie's like, no, don't do that. Well, if you have a website like that and you're listening, don't do it. Anyway. So I think I'm super cool for like 5 minutes. And Charlie's like, yeah, but do you see this website I built for this entire dog rescue with my eyes closed, back flipping out the door? And I'm like, cool. Yeah. I made a doll for someone in 2008.
It's like, yeah. Do you know Ajax? Do you know all that kind of stuff? And you're like, yeah, but I know how to make it go red and flash.
Exactly. And I could put a song on the back of my MySpace in 2008 before it was cool. But yeah, he's smart at that stuff. And he can like make literal apps for your phone. Darn him.
What actually ever happened to MySpace? Does it even exist in any form anymore?
It's a music thing. For a while it was. So apparently a bunch of bands went on it. I don't know, Tim. If you Google my name and you go on MySpace, my account's still there, but I have no clue how to get into it. One day I may have looked at it at like 3 a.m. But I have no clue, Tim. I don't know what happened. Sometimes I miss those days. But before MySpace, I was on, what was it called?
GeoCities?
No, Charlie was on GeoCities. He was the predecessor, like you, Tim, with the IT stuff. No, I was on Bloop Diary.
Okay.
Bloop Diary. And I remember very distinctly Bloop Diary. And I remember it was the predecessor. And like it was like you literally, it was your diary and you were putting it out to the world. And now I'm like, why was I doing that? Of course, I was like 10, so who knows what I was thinking.
Well, for the same reason why people put things on Facebook that say, I can't sleep, and it's 2 o'clock in the morning. Same reason.
And you're like, I don't care that you can't sleep. Go to bed. I don't know what to tell you. Well, and I feel like we've all become so addicted to the idea of putting everything out there. And it started when I was 10, so who knows?
I prefer just to put out funny stories that we think of out there.
Well, I mean, to be fair, Tim, all I post is like, Tim can confirm this, funny memes, pictures of my dog, and the occasional injury. In that order. That's all I post. Nothing else. I don't have anything else to post. Anyway.
I think I put, certainly like on Instagram and stuff, I put pictures of our cat, gigs, and the odd trip here and there.
I was going to say, and when he goes to a restaurant, occasionally I see restaurant photos, usually when he's at like the Cheesecake Factory, or he's finding key lime pie in a vending machine.
And for everyone who's never been to the United States, every vending machine has key lime pie.
And I just realized, Tim, we have been talking for a very long time. We haven't even got to the topic yet.
Joy, I mean, that's just how this podcast rolls. You know how it is.
Debatable music, key lime pie. Tim's going to tell you what you should do when you go to buy a car. Who knows? It's
all going on. You always kick the tires. That's what you do when you go to buy a car.
You never let them know if you want the vehicle. Don't ever tell them you're interested.
Don't let on.
The worst thing about buying a vehicle, though, in all honesty, Tim, is how long you have to be there for. Why does it take 74 hours? It feels like it's not really. It's like 4 hours to buy a car. What are they doing? Are they just holding you hostage to hold you hostage?
Yeah, it should be I know it's a large transaction, but it should be a simple transaction. You should be, including the test drive, you should be in and out in an hour, really.
And if you know my husband, Tim, and Tim does, he does not have no time for any of that. Charlie, when he got his Prius, so my husband has a Prius, the most recent one, they tried to hold him hostage. He went, nope, I got to go walk my dog. And he left. And they called him when he got home. And they did all of it via phone because I was like, nope, I already sat with you and my wife bought her car and I'm not doing it again. Anyway.
Oh, goodness me. Okay, well, let's try and steer this back to this vague music podcast that we do. Debatable. So this week's topic, it is Joy's turn for the topic. And as ever, I don't know what it is. So Joy, over to you.
All right. So we are just going to discuss music facts, just random music facts that you didn't know you'd need to know, Tim.
Okay.
Or maybe you did know you didn't. I don't know how that works. But we're just going to discuss some random things that I found that I thought were interesting, things people don't know about musicians, artists, songs, whatever. Some of these Tim's probably going to be like, I knew that because he's Tim, but that's a debate for another time. All right. The first one is, did you know, Tim, that Freddie Mercury, that's the word I was trying to find, allegedly snuck Princess Diana into a bar or a club in the 1980s?
I didn't know that, but that wouldn't surprise me because I believe that Freddie Mercury was friends with Princess Diana, and I know Princess Diana, I can't even say it myself, Princess Diana had a particularly unhappy marriage to Prince Charles, so I could see that she might want to sneak out and maybe go bar hopping with Freddie Mercury, because why wouldn't you want to do that?
Well, and she did my favorite. So he dressed her up in an army jacket and sunglasses, because of course he did, right? Fabulous. Mm-hmm. And she's known for her fashion, but it was gay bars and gay clubs, which are my favorite to go to because they're the funnest. So yeah, he snuck her out and they went and had a good time apparently in the 80s. I did not know that.
Oh, fantastic. And I did was Prince Charles aware, or was this completely it
was a on the down low thing?
Completely covert operation.
By the way, if everybody didn't know, Tim actually knows what happens to Princess Diana. Everybody in the UK does. They just didn't tell us. So there's an ongoing joke. One time in our previous life when we both worked at the same place, I had this conversation and Tim was like, we were discussing Princess Diana and her death. And Tim went, well, it's so obvious. And then he like explained to us his theory. We don't need to get into it. I went, why did you say that with such confidence? And he goes, well, duh. And I'm like, did everybody in the UK get told something we didn't? It was like in America. It's like, oh my God, what happened to Princess Diana?
I think it was just putting two and two together. I mean, we weren't issued a packet or anything. It wasn't a memo that was posted through your house or anything like that.
They all got a smoke signal that we didn't know about. Anyway, so we've talked about this one. This is a fact that Tim is probably aware of. And that is Leo Fender can't play a guitar.
Yeah, Leo Fender, who designed the Fender Broadcaster guitar in 1948, which was then later called the Fender Telecaster because the Gretsch drum company owned the Broadcaster trademark. So it became the Telecaster, which actually became the Esquire, which was the one pickup model. And then it became the Telecaster, which is the two pickup model. And also he designed the Fender Stratocaster guitar, which is probably the most famous electric guitar there's ever been, played by Dave Gilmour and played by Jimi Hendrix and played by. Yes, he was not a guitar player. He could not play. He was an engineer.
See, I mean, it makes sense, though.
Yeah, and what he did, Gibson were making fine guitars, if you like, very carved tops, glued-in necks, very ornate woodworking, in the tradition of, like, violins and cellos and that kind of stuff. That kind of construction, but for a electric solid-body guitar. But what Leo Fender, being an engineer, he wanted to mass-produce these instruments. And having a glued-on neck joint, having very articulate woods and carving and stuff doesn't really lend itself to mass production. And the other thing is having the neck screwed to the body means that if there's a fault in manufacture, you can unscrew it and put another one on.
Smart, honestly, and it's good for the consumer.
Yeah, absolutely. And that design of guitar has an incredibly different sound to a glued-in neck design. I mean, I don't need to go into all that other stuff. But
that played into Tim's knowledge base there.
Yeah, but Leo Fender was an engineer first and foremost, but he could not play guitar.
Fair enough.
I did know that.
So this one is just completely random and something that I don't know any of us would know. Greece, the country, has the has the longest national anthem in the world. It has 158 verses. Estimates for how long it takes to sing range from 6 minutes to 35 years, depending on your style of singing.
Goodness me.
So, if you're rapping versus opera singing, I guess. Also, what?
Here's a question something I've just thought of. Who decides national anthems? Who decided that is the national anthem? Is it
voted on, maybe?
I don't know. Who decided God Save the Queen? Who decided the Star Spangled Banner? Who decided... is it the French one, the tricolor, I think?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, who
Canada? Was that their national anthem?
Yeah, who decided that stuff? Was there a national vote 200 years ago or something?
Well, I mean, the rockets, red glare, the bombs bursting in air in America, it's literally talking about war.
Exactly.
I don't know, Tim. And you've said many times, it's a very American thing that the national anthem has to play before major events. You don't do that as much in other countries.
No, I think I'm not somebody who's super into sports at all. But I think if you went to a sporting match where it was one country against another country, I think it was very typical that they would play the national anthem. But certainly around here, and I think it is a US thing in general, any event you go to, I like going to monster truck rallies and everyone will please stand for the national anthem. Or you go to, I went to WWF wrestling in Roanoke 3 or 4 years ago, and then you stand for the national anthem.
I've sang the national anthem at basketball games when I was in high school, football game. Somebody had to sing it, right, Tim? So, they gave me a mic, and I've sang the national anthem at basketball games before. It's just a very thing we do here. I don't know.
Exactly. I mean, This is my limited exposure to sport, so I'll just preface this. I've been to WWF wrestling in the UK many times. There was no national anthems and there was no standing. I've been to WWF wrestling since I've lived here once, but there was standing in national anthems. Just saying that.
I don't know. I don't know why it is. I don't know where it started and who voted on it, Tim. But whoever in Greece voted for a song that has 158 verses.
Well, you know what? It might be because the Greek people wanted to psych the opposition out. So if there's a sporting event against, I don't know, England for argument's sake, so they play God Save the Queen, which is 2 minutes or whatever. Mm-hmm. And then they say, ladies and gentlemen, please stand for the Greek national anthem. And it's 33 minutes long. I think it's just it's psyching the opposition out.
Yeah, maybe. They quit before they ever play. So Greece
it could be the other team may concede before the national anthem is over.
Slaughter rule times 1,000. Anyway, all right, moving on to the next one. So this is voted by the BBC, of course, so debatable what that audience is. But it says, in 2004, a BBC poll found the greatest song lyric opening. Like the opening to a song was, it's from Werewolves in London. I saw a werewolf with a Chinese menu in his hand. Nearly beat out Why can't we say words, Tim? Bill Haley's Rock Around the Clock and Bruce Springsteen's Hungry Heart.
I mean, it's a cool lyric, but I don't know if it's necessarily the greatest opening song lyric of all time.
I think they forgot who has the greatest song lyric openings of all time. It is a one that Shania Twain. If you don't get hyped when you hear "Let's Go Girls," you don't get nothing to me. We're done. I
mean, let's face it.
I could kick the door out when I hear that song lyric, Tim.
She's totally crazy. She's wearing a man shirt and a short skirt. I mean, she just feels like a woman. I mean, I'm with you.
But I mean, it's not even her greatest. There's other ones. She has great openings to her songs. She really does. But if you don't hear that and feel like you're going to knock the door off its hinges, we're not friends. I'm just saying.
Back when I played with the Guilty Party, we used to play at the Lakeside Country Club in Frimley, which is actually the town I was born in. But they had a DJ there that had maybe 6 songs, 5 songs, 6 songs. So we did a Christmas season there where we played Thursday, Friday, Saturday. And we supported lots of C, D, and E-list celebrities. But between the celebrities and us playing, they had this DJ. And I forget, they gave us Tony, I think his name was. But you knew that at the first break, it would be bam, 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 bam. Let's go, girls. It's like,
it's so iconic. Like whoever, I hate to say this, Tim, and I'm sorry for our UK fans. I'm going to stereotype for a minute. Let's be honest. You guys are stereotyping Americans occasionally. I feel like it's a bunch of British stuck-up posh people who voted on this BBC post or something. I don't know. Like, it's a cool song. I like Werewolves in London, but I have never once thought, that's a really good song opening. You know what I mean? Like, it just doesn't.
Oh, I mean, what's wrong with, is this a real life? Is this just fantasy? Caught up in a landslide, no escape from reality. I mean,
yeah.
Or another great song, There's Something Strange in the Neighborhood. Who are you going to call? I mean, that sets you right up.
Mm-hmm. Or, I mean, there's like 1,000 songs we could go through, Tim. Why that one? It's just really random. But apparently in 2004 in the BBC, it was voted on. But I mean, Shania's got always these really great openings, like From This Moment. That opening with the riff and everything is beautiful. Mm-hmm. She's got great. Or even that one song she did, the party song with that one other singer. And she's like, come on. She's talking to the other guy. She just got really good openings to her songs. Just saying, Shania Twain. They should have went Shania, Tim.
Yeah, I mean, is Shania in her, older years, is she bordering into Dolly territory, do you think, for being sort of timeless and legendary?
110% she is. There's no doubt in my mind. And the thing about it is if you've ever did any research in Dolly and Shania, Dolly was a crossover pop hit. What is Shania Twain? She's a crossover pop hit. There's something about them that transcends whether you like country music or not. And honestly, I'm going to say this, and somebody be like, that's a little sexist or whatever. I can't think of a male country artist who's done it. It's always been the females.
You know, it
maybe
goes with
Johnny Cash, maybe.
With male artists, it goes completely the other way, where the rock and pop stars move into the country world. Like you have John Bon Jovi, you have Darius Rucker. And I think even Justin Timberlake ended up on some CMT awards or something, playing with... I can't even think of the guy's name, but he was playing in that kind of thing. So it seems to be, in that context, the guys go the country way. I
do know Justin Timberlake did. Words are hard, man. Harder words. Justin Timberlake did a version of Garth Brooks, Friends in Low Places, at his concert for a long time. Like he did a full version of it. And there's like a third or fourth verse. You know, the unwritten verse that people play. Because Tim's played in bands, so he's probably heard it. And Justin Timberlake always does that verse.
Okay. Well, and if you know the cynical part of me would think that Justin Timberlake is setting himself up for his later career when he's maybe burnt the pop thing out, and then he can go out to go move into the country world. Maybe,
but I will say I watched one concert where he did that because I was just curious, and Garth Brooks comes on stage with him, and it was actually pretty cool. Oh, wow. I have a theory Garth Brooks might actually be the nicest human being in the world. If you've ever seen him, he seems like the nicest person.
I heard that, and there was a story recently where someone went to a concert of his, and they'd went to a concert 20 years ago or something with Garth Brooks, and they got a guitar pick. And then they went to this other concert, 20 years later or whatever, and they'd mounted it on a piece of card. And it's like, Garth, I got this in 2001. Can I have another guitar pick to match it? That's awesome. And Garth gave the person a guitar.
I mean, that sounds like what I've heard about him. I've just heard he's a really nice guy. And there's that one song he did. It's like something about wanting to be free. It talks about racism, sexism, all these like really key pieces in the world. And there's a really cool version. If you see the Kennedy Center, I love the Garth Brooks Kennedy Center Honors. I've talked many times. I love watching the Kennedy Center Honors. That may be a topic in the future. Tim knows I've got a big love for that. But who is it who sings that? Hold on, I got to look it up. I'm giving it a Goog live on air, everybody.
It's a live Goog, Joy.
Because if I say it wrong, someone's going to come for me. But let's see who does it.
You see it there?
It's God, I'm gonna have to go into the YouTubes, everybody. I'm gonna have to take a step further and go to the YouTubes. It was, the Thunder Rolls and Friends in Low Places. James Taylor does The River, but there's Trisha Yearwood, his wife, who's got a gorgeous voice, does her version of it. But there's somebody, Kelly Clarkson plays. Who is the final person? I'm gonna kick myself, Tim. What is that song? We Shall Be Free. Okay. That's the song. Have you ever heard that song, Tim? Gladys Knight. It's Gladys Knight. She does a version of We Shall Be Free. And she talks about, she's like, I love this song because it hits on racism, it hits on sexism. It just talks about how, like, once we get over these things, we shall be free. And every time I watch that Kennedy, and I'm not big into country music, I love Garth Brooks because I think he's like he's kind of like Dolly, you know what I mean? He's got a different thing when he's not being his other alter ego we don't talk about. But so my husband recently Charlie got a new job. I haven't talked to Tim about this, but anyway, one of the people on there, the name, Tim, was Chris Gaines. And Charlie goes, why do I know that name? And I was like, it's Garth Brooks' alter ego.
As I've told you before, I'm a proud owner of the Chris Gaines' Greatest Hits album. I found it in a thrift shop in Tennessee, in Pigeon Forge, no less. And it is a keystone of my music collection.
Anyway, back on topic. If you've never heard Gladys Knight's version of We Shall Be Free, which makes me cry, got Garth Brooks crying because Gladys Knight's singing his song, right? And it's gorgeous. It's beautiful. She's heartfelt. It's amazing. If you've never seen, stand by this internet. If you've never seen the Kennedy Center Honors for Garth Brooks, it's great.
Okay. Right. Well, we should post that on our Twitter and also on our Facebook page.
Just be ready to cry, everybody, because it makes me cry. Not that it'll make you cry, but it makes me cry. All right. Next, random bizarre topic you didn't know you needed to know, or whatever this topic of this show is. Weird things. Rod Stewart played in the largest free rock concert. Did you know that, Tim?
Whereabouts did it take place?
So we may have talked about this once before. I kind of remember something about Guinness World Records. Rod Stewart in 1993's New Year's Eve concert in Copacabana. That's just not Copacabana.
It's Copacabana, as in the Manilow song.
What Tim said, not what I said. Beach in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, is the most attended free concert ever. Around 4.2 million people came to the beach.
Well, I do know in Copacabana that music and passion is always in fashion. So, I mean, I'm sure people were very passionate and loved the music, so it's unsurprising people are going to come to the beach at the Copacabana.
Also, like, if Rod Stewart were given a free concert, I'd go in a heartbeat. Free concert to go see Rod Stewart? Come on.
Sure. I think, like, free concerts were a thing, especially, like, in the 70s. It was a thing having these big free concerts. Queen famously did one in Hyde Park.
Huh. Oh, no, I do know what you're talking about. I think we've talked about it a few times. And Hyde Park is one of those places that had tons of concerts. So they might not be the only one.
Oh, sure. I mean, over the years, there have been many concerts in Hyde Park. But I mean, being a Queen superfan, I know of their free concert they did in Hyde Park.
My favorite free concert I've ever been to was, there was this band, I can't think of them. They were famous for like 5 minutes. Hold on. They did a song called Home. Hold on. I'm just going to look it up, guys. Another Google on air. Nobody judge me because I can't think of the name of this band because they weren't like, you know what I mean, Tim? They were like a huge band. Edward Sharp and the Magnetic Zeros. That's what they were called. So there was, whenever I lived in Utah, there was this little park thing in Salt Lake City. They would do free weekly concerts during the summer. Most of the time it was kind of like, meh. There's this band. It's called Edward Sharp and the Magnetic Zeros. They became famous for like 5 minutes. They did the song you may have heard. It's like, home is whenever I'm with you. Home. And then there's another one. It's called Janglin', and it was in a car commercial. It was one of those like famous car commercial songs or whatever. But right before they became famous, they came and did a free concert in Utah. And I distinctly remember this concert because it was like one of my favorite memories of all time. It was very sunny, very summery, but in Utah, it's not a super humid heat like we have here, Tim, so it's not as terrible some of the time because Utah is a desert. But my husband and me, we went, and we rode his motorcycle because it's very summer. We went downtown. Everybody had to park a mile away because there's so many people there for a free concert. But because we were on Charlie's motorcycle, we could park where we wanted. So we got to park right by the venue. I remember that. And we came in, and it was one of those things where, I don't know, the vibe was just really good, and the concert was so perfect. It was right at dusk. It was like the perfect temperature. Everything about it was perfect, and it was free. And I remember this very distinctly because it was right before that song Home became really popular for 5 minutes, and then that song Janglin' was on that car commercial, and so no one knew who they were. But not even 10, maybe 20 minutes later, it felt like it, everybody knew who they were. And it was super cool because I just happened on a whim to see that concert was free downtown.
And yeah, that's cool. They do concerts in downtown Christiansburg. Have you seen any of those, Joy?
I have, not recently, but I went to one few years back, and it's pretty good. It's usually on Main Street. There was one not maybe 4 or 5 weeks ago that I drove past. Yeah,
I think it's called the Summer Concert Series or something. And I think I get the sense that it's sort of cover bands like I would play in rather than sort of original artists. But I think it's nice that the town are doing that kind of stuff.
I appreciate it, and I'm always about, I've had some of the best experiences, little concerts like that. So what I was just saying, I also saw Fitz and the Tantrums, which we talked about. They came to, for some reason, Virginia Tech. We and Tim live near Virginia Tech. Now, if you know anything about Fitz and the Tantrums, they had that one song called I Can Hear Your Can Clap. You know what I'm talking about, Tim? Where they was like, and then they did The Walker and Out of My League. And it's like 5 songs that were really good. But other than that, for some reason, they came for free, and I got to see them. And I just remember me and my friend Molly there. And we were so excited. It was Molly's birthday, and we were probably the only non-college drunk kid there, but anyway. And we were so mad, Tim, because we got stuck behind the 2 guys who had to be every bit of 6'7" directly in front of us. And every time we tried to move around, they would like reappear directly in front of us.
Well, do you know that's funny? That's like a joke that Hannah and I have. So we go to a concert, and because we're old, we don't do standing anymore. We just do seating concerts. So we'll go to a great concert and we'll sit down. And of course, I would insist we get there ridiculously early. So we're sitting there early, plenty of time to kill, just taking it easy. And then like a bunch of people will come in front of us, and Hannah will say, "That guy's going to sit in front of me," and then this guy will sit down. He's like 7'3". So
when me and my mom were on a plane, and it was one of those, when you can see the people who are trying to fly standby to get on the plane, and they're always anxious and running up to the counter, and they're there. There was a bunch of people trying to fly standby on this plane. So we know it's going to be a jam-packed, and I can't afford to fly any more than economy. Tim understands. I don't think he is flying first class either. So I already know I'm going to be jam-packed in this little seat to begin with. So we get on the plane, and I'm sitting there. And for some reason, the seat, so we were in the middle, the three in the middle, which is always the worst to begin with. I let my mom sit on the end, and then I sat in the middle. And the seat beside me, no one came into it. And I'm like, sit there going, please, 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 please. You know what I mean? Tim, like, what are the chances? Yeah. And I knew there were so many people trying to fly standby because it was an international flight. And you know how those are. They always want to fly. We were going into, I think, probably Munich. So we were probably flying from Charlotte to Munich. And I'm going, please, 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 please. Just for the love of God, I would love it if no one came and sat beside me. But I knew there was a bunch of people. This guy gets on the plane. And he had the biggest bag you've ever seen. And he was so clumsy and was falling all over the plane. And I'm going, he's going to sit right beside me, isn't he? He's going to sit right beside me. He gets on the plane, Tim, and I kid you not, he rams I don't know how it was too big to be in the carry-on thing. But they should have put it in that little thing where they measure or whatever, but they didn't for some reason for this guy. Probably because he was flying standby. So, and I saw him, he's coming right out. So I'm like, he's going to sit right beside me, isn't he? And so he flings that big bag into the seat. And when he does, it falls over and hits me over the head. Oh, no. Whacks me right in the face. I was like, I knew it. I should have saw that coming. I was so hopeful, Tim. I was going to get to fly from Charlotte to Munich with no one beside me. Guess what I didn't get to do?
And another injury story on top of that.
I mean, it was more of like just like a bump, but I'm just like, seriously? Like, did you have to fling? Because he did that, like, have you ever seen people who like throw their bag in their seat before they go to stick it up the top? So he opened the thing and he set it down and he's standing in the thing and he goes to shove it up. And it was a whole thing. But as soon as he walked on the plane, I'm like, he's going to sit directly beside me. I could see it from a mile away. He was very nice to the flight. He was, he kept to himself, headphones in. I'm not trying to judge the guy. I just knew. Anyway, so back to the music facts. So this one is one Tim and I have discussed. So we were talking about Rod Stewart doing his large free concert. Finland has the most metal bands per capita. So we've talked about this before because of that whole thing where why do they have so many metal bands? So Finland apparently is home to the most metal bands with about 53.5 metal bands per 100,000 people. Other Nordic nations, Sweden, Norway, and Iceland follow close behind. Tim has a theory because it's cold and they're not doing anything else. Even though heavy metal music originating in the US and the UK, the genre is taking off in northern climates. There's even a Finnish children's metal group. I'm not going to try to say this. It's HEV. It's like a dinosaur. HEVISARU. Or it's like Hervernosaurus, something like that. Of heavy metal dinosaurs with more than 7 albums under their belt. And I have a video of the dinosaurs.
As I said, you said my theory, which is that especially in the north of those Scandinavian countries, they're very bleak. They're not very well populated. And in the winter, they get absurdly cold. And I think people just get bored and depressed. So what they do, they start a metal band.
I mean, I guess, but I really want Tim to now play at Havana, whatever this is, this dinosaur band, this band of dinosaurs, Rex. I want to see Tim play the guitar in a dinosaur outfit. That's all I'm saying.
Well, I don't know. I'd be up for that. That'd probably be a lot of fun.
I mean, to be fair, Tim knows I'm the queen of a good costume. I got a Pikachu. I got an inflatable avocado. I got a giant mystery machine. I could probably come up with a dinosaur.
Absolutely. And it must be said, in fact, your Pikachu conversation came up in the office today.
How?
The legend of your Pikachu costume
just lives on.
And for those people who don't know, Joy's Pikachu costume is so big you can barely get into a standard lift wearing it.
So what happened is I shied away from the Halloween world. I'm a big Halloween person, and Tim can tell you, I take my costumes very seriously. About the third year I worked there, I had my husband, Charles, because he is what he is, ordered me a very large inflatable Pikachu costume from China. Literally came from China on eBay. So I snuck into work very early. I got there like an hour and a half before the doors opened. And I'm like, so I'm coming upstairs and I'm like, and I go into my office and I wasn't expecting anybody else to be there, but our director of the entire company, I won't say his name, Tim knows who I'm talking about, walks in and you just see me in the corner in my office trying to put on an inflatable Pikachu costume. And he's like, hey, and I'm like, hey, Halloween, cool. And he just walks on and no one says a word to me. So then I put it on and I just hide in the department waiting for people to come in. So no one knows there's a giant Pikachu costume waiting on them. Then the following year, I wore an inflatable avocado costume that had a ball on it. That was the pit. But for some people thought that was a pregnancy announcement. So that one didn't go as well as I thought it was going to. That was a whole debate for another time. It was not a pregnancy announcement. Then the next year, the entire HR team decided we were going to dress up as the Scooby-Doo gang. And I had to take it a step farther. And Tim, bless his soul, sees Joy at 8:30 in the morning coming out of her car trying to put on a literal homemade mystery machine that, by the way, ended up falling apart after it was all said and done. There's a lot of work that went into that. It went over my body. It was cardboard. And if you paid really close attention, I was wearing a Scooby-Doo gang T-shirt, so it looked like they were sitting in the mystery machine because of where there's a lot of so that's the history of Joy's very delicate, thought out Halloween costumes. Maybe this year I'll have to come visit unexpectedly on Halloween in something.
I think you should
At least go into the IT department, right? Thinking of, Anita, let me in. So I just open the door and sneak into the IT department. Many times have I had costume clufunkles that I'm calling Tim going, can you let me in? Can you help me in this door? And Tim's like, what's going on now? What happened?
Yeah. I'm a giant avocado and I can't get my ID badge.
He's like, I expect no less. Anyway, all right, back to the music trivia. So I'm trying to figure out which one I want to say. So based off of that one, did you know that Michael Jackson once tried to buy Marvel Comics?
I didn't, but that wouldn't surprise me because he had incredibly deep pockets and maybe a childlike outlook on stuff. Well, so that doesn't surprise me.
Of course, Stan Lee was like, no, you can't have a Marvel. But anyway, I mean, to be fair, we've talked many times about the whole record thing where he bought other artists' records and all that kind of stuff. He had deep pockets, and I think in some way he tried to spend his money wisely a few times, but generally he didn't. That's just common knowledge. Neverland Ranch is now nothing. Anyway, so basically the story goes, Michael Jackson tried to buy Marvel Comics. MJ was a huge Spider-Man fan, and actually my husband has told me this story because he's big into comics. I wanted to play the role in a movie. He attempted to buy Marvel Comics. The company was created, the character had owned Spider-Man. That's what Marvel is. So he can make it happen because they didn't want to put him in the movie because he's such an iconic person. It's not going to work, right? And I don't know if he could act, honestly. Stan Lee, Marvel's chairman, up until his death in 2018, now Disney owns the rights, has recalled this story in an interview. Lee said that he thought Michael would have made a good Superman, but he felt Jackson was not a good businessman, which is kind of what Tim was leading into a minute ago, and Marvel may not have been successful under his helm. Also, he didn't know if he could act.
I would say, I mean, as far as Michael Jackson spending his money like water, I mean, the only context I have is that Martin Bashir documentary where he's in Vegas in that.
That's exactly what I think of too.
Yeah, that gaudy gift shop that sells Fabergé eggs and solid gold chairs and things like that. And they closed it for him, and he's just walking around saying, "Yeah, I'll have that one, I'll have that one, I'll have that one, I'll have that one." And, he probably spent $3 million on just walking around it for 40 minutes. So, I mean, you extrapolate that to all the other weird stuff that he wanted. I mean, he earned a lot of money.
He had all the animals, remember, Tim? The monkey, the mouse. The song Ben's about a mouse, his pet mouse.
Sure, but then there was the monkey Bubbles as well.
Yeah, and then didn't he have like a giraffe? Like he had a bunch of animals. And Neverland Ranch, there was a lot of money spent improperly. His estate didn't have. It's not like I'm a money financial expert and Tim isn't either, though we claim to be on this podcast when we give you advice. We don't claim that. That's a joke. But previously we told you how to buy a car and things. Tim's explained how mortgages work in the UK. But anyway, I'm just saying that his track record's not great. But I mean, I kind of understand. If I had owned Marvel Comics, I don't think I would want Michael to be Spider-Man. I know Superman's not Marvel. Don't come for me, internet. That's a slip of the tongue. But I don't think I would want him to be Spider-Man because he's such an iconic person separate of Spider-Man. I just think I just don't know that I'd want that.
Yeah, I think you see, like a lot of actors, you can separate them and their personality from the part that they play. Mm-hmm. But I think, like, if you had a Michael Jackson Spider-Man, it would be impossible. I just don't know that you could do that. It's just a theory. Anyway, so next one that I chose was, so we've talked about this in detail, Tim, and I'm just going to say this really quickly before I go into something that I think is more interesting. But me and Tim have talked many times about Prince's ability to play everything, do everything, be just like, he played 27 albums, 27 instruments on his debut album. I think we've talked about that before, but 27 is crazy. Yeah. I mean, as we've mentioned many times before, the loss of Prince is just such a tragedy because he has had so much talent. He could play all those instruments. He was producing. He was writing all that kind of stuff. We may have said that little tidbit before, but I just think it's very important to bring up again. So the next one that I know we have never talked about, I've never heard this before in my life. The world's longest running performance will end in the 27th century. A 639-year performance based on electric composer John Cage, As Slow as Possible, started in September of 2001 and is still playing in St. Card's Church in Germany. The performance was played by an automated organ, right? Mm-hmm. So slowly that visitors who come to wait for months for a chord to change. You have to wait for months to hear a chord change. And it's scheduled to end in 2640. Well, assuming that the equipment doesn't fail due to mechanical failure. So that's the next thing people said. The performance is so slow, the organ it's played on was not even completed before the concert began. Additional pipes were added before the notes and chords changed. A generation of musicians have been hired to keep the organ going. I mean, why? I mean, I've been to local band concerts that seem that long. I have too. I've been to events that seem that long, but why? Well, I suppose it's because they can. I mean, I guess I'd have to hear it and know. I don't know what John Cage's As Slow as. I like how it's called As Slow as Possible. But it's bordering on that sort of novelty music writing where you have some I forget who it is. It's some classical artist wrote some piece, and it has like a 23-minute rest in it, and it's just silence. That's crazy to me though, because I feel like if I had to sit there and wait for months for a chord to change, I'd leave. I'm just saying, Tim, like, I just don't know that this would be an interest to me to go see. I might want to see it for like 2 minutes, you know what I mean? And just kind of hear it, but I don't think that I'd stick around. No, I think practically you couldn't stick around because you're not going to hang out in this church for months on end to hear the chord change. Can I say something strange? Is the church not being used on Sundays for other things? Maybe they turn the volume down. Or separate rooms, I guess. It could be. Maybe they built a special room just for this.
I don't know. I don't know the answer, but it's all very strange. All right. So this is a weird fact that I guarantee you Tim has never heard because it's not anything we would have ever heard. Dogfish skin, you heard that right, was used in the 18th century to sand violins. Dogfish are a family of sharks. Dogfish make up the second largest group of sharks at 119 species. They have 2 dorsal fins. Their skin is generally rough to touch, hence being used to sand the wood of violins. They're found at coastal waters. They're threatened and vulnerable now. And apparently they're critically endangered in the Northeast Atlantic, meaning stocks around Europe have decreased by 95%. But apparently back in the day, their skin had just the amount of coarseness you needed to sand a violin.
Wow. I mean, using animal parts in instrument manufacture is very common, or at least it was very common. Like the nut on most guitars, excuse me. So I'm not even going to edit that out. We're all friends here. The nut in most guitars, or not, well, I'll say most, but a lot, is actually made of bone.
I mean, I've heard that before.
And acoustic guitar strings were traditionally made of gut, like animal gut.
I mean, it's not crazy though, because if you look back, there's different things, and I've heard of things like the balloons from stomachs being used to make instruments and different things in the past, Tim.
Yeah. Well, I suppose the other thing is that back before the industrial age, you would use any materials that you had at your disposal. And whereas now you'd use a composite material, you'd use, or if you was building a violin or something, you'd have all these various tools, power tools, chisels, various grades of abrasive papers to use. But back then, you had wood and you probably maybe had a chisel. But what did you have at your disposal? Shark carcass.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds weird, but I understand why.
Absolutely.
I didn't know this. And this is crazy, just to change the fact about, me and Tim are vegetarians, so talking about animal parts are our favorite. But I didn't know this. Did you know warning stickers on albums are voluntary?
What, just generally?
Yeah. So artists and their labels are responsible for deciding whether a particular album needs the black and white parental, advisory content label on their albums. This is per NPR, which is one of Tim's favorites, so we're going to take them as serious. Unlike Motion Picture Association of America rating system movies, the music labels that it's voluntary and has no specific guidelines.
I didn't know that, because I know there was that whole thing with Tipper Gore and the Parents Against Satanic Music or whatever that whole campaign was years ago. But yeah, you're right, because you can have music with language and themes and all that kind of stuff going on, but it's freely sold anywhere to anyone.
Yeah.
Whereas like a film or a TV show that may have those kind of themes, if someone's 15 years old, they can't go in and buy an R-rated film.
Yeah. Well, and I just thought it was interesting because you just assume there's some sort of guidelines around that, but I guess there isn't. And Charlie, my husband, always talks about there was Evanescence when their original debut album come out. And I know Tim's familiar with Evanescence. He likes them. They had some kind of, I guess what you would think is a little bit maybe PG-13 kind of stuff going on. And Charlie grew up in Utah, which for our UK friends are generally a Mormon community. There's a lot of religion thing going on there, which I thought was a stereotype until I lived there and can confirm there is a big religious incantation there. But he talked about when that album came out, it was a big deal because like the warning stickers or something didn't go on the album the way they were supposed to. And everybody in Utah was up and they got banned. For a while, Evanescence was banned in Utah. Like you couldn't buy their album. And he loves Evanescence. I told you, he loves the flair for dramatic, and that's Evanescence summed up. But he bought one of the original albums and he says he wished he still had it that didn't have the original warning sticker because it was a big deal. He lived there. So I always thought that was an interesting story.
And one thing I didn't realize until I lived here is that if you buy albums from Walmart, they make special Walmart editions with edits on them, and I didn't even know that was a thing.
I mean, I didn't either until you told me on one of the episodes, and then I Googled it.
Yeah,
Weird.
and that's why I occasionally, I very occasionally go in Walmart. To be honest, I rarely go in Walmart because I end up buying David Hasselhoff stuff and it scares me. But we don't need to go back into that story once again.
I still have
But
nightmares.
I would go in there and look in their $5 CD bin, and it might be for $5 I'd take a chance. But if I wanted to buy a metal album or something, I would not buy it in Walmart because who knows what they've done to it.
Every time when you said take a chance, I thought you were going to break into ABBA, but anyway, not related. But yeah, I don't know. That's kind of weird, though, that there's no guidelines on that kind of stuff because it makes you wonder, like, what people are and aren't buying. But anyway, if you're part of the record company and you can influence this, me and Tim have questions because it's very weird to us. Anyway.
Exactly.
So this is interesting. And it's not really, I mean, it's kind of a music fact, not specific. Did you know ringtones earn $1 billion? Ringtones, like when you're on your cell phone from 2005 to 2007, back when, we had to actually pay for that stuff. Now we all keep our phones on silent.
Yeah, that doesn't surprise me. Ringtones was a huge thing. And I remember there being TV commercials to download ringtones. There was the crazy frog, and then there was some orange that you could have as an annoying ringtone. And they even had video ringtones where it would come up. Was when you started getting color displays on phones. Those would come up when it rang.
Yeah, and I distinctly remember because I got a cell phone, and it was, how like you could record your ringtone, Tim, on the radio. I got one version, and I can't remember what brand it was, and it didn't give me the ability to record it. So I went back and gave it back to U.S. Cellular and got me one that I could do that. But that's what I was worried about, the capabilities on my phone in 2005.
Well, I can tell you I suppose it was probably late 90s, early 2000s. I had a Nokia phone. I forget which model it was. It was blue, but it was before WAP phones.
Yeah.
It was before smartphones, anything like that. And I went to the car phone warehouse in Hounslow High Street. For people who are maybe not quite that burnt out about Hounslow Tales after last week's episode, but I went to the car phone warehouse in Hounslow High Street. And I had the Knight Rider theme put on my phone. And I distinctly remember paying £5 for that privilege.
Well, Tim.
And it wasn't, the thing is, it wasn't like the actual tune that you'd hear on the TV show. It was just bleeps and blops in the Knight Rider theme.
I'm trying to even think if I could remember what my ringtone was. Like the fact that you have that distinct story, I can't even tell you what. Okay. I do have one ringtone story, and it was a bad one. It was Mercy Playground's Blanking Candy, because this is a PG podcast, and I had it on my phone, and as those who know that song go, the chorus, the very distinct chorus that goes into I blank and blank candy, was my ringtone, because I was young and hip and urban and thought I was fun, Tim, and it went off in church. And it went off at school. Yeah. Still distinctly remember my mother's face when that went off in church. And that's when I started putting my phone on silent forever.
Well, I'm going to be bad here, Joy. I think we're 75, 76 episodes into this, and we should be fine. But I'd like to exclusively reveal what my current ringtone is on my phone. Are you ready?
Okay.
This may be a big surprise for everyone, but I'm going to play it right now.
I have a theory of what it is.
There you go. That's what you need to know.
What is my ringtone? Now that's a question, because I feel like it's a song. I don't know what it is. My phone's always on silent. I don't know the answer to this, Tim. I want to say it's the Beatles, but I'm not going to play that because that will get us broken from the internet forever. Yeah, it's the Beatles. It's Hard Day's Night. It's my current ringtone.
There you go. But these days it's very easy to put your own stuff on your ringtone. I will say to shoehorn
back in the day.
To shoehorn the Knight Rider theme on an iPhone is doable, but it's a lot of hoop jumping. But I did do it.
Fair enough. I mean, I give you that. All right. So back to just weird things you didn't know about musicians. Did you know the Eagles were the first ones to earn a platinum album?
I didn't know that, but that doesn't surprise me. The Eagles being as popular as they are and as many records as they've sold.
So the Eagles earned the first platinum album for Eagles / their greatest hits, 1971 to 1975. Of course, it's a greatest hits album. When RIAA released the prestigious status in 1976. So that was the first one was given out. And nearly 50 other albums would also go platinum that year. Didn't know that.
There you go. I mean, the sad thing is about sort of music now is that no one is ever going to sell that many records ever again. And I think what they do with the gold and platinum and silver and all that kind of stuff, it seems to be what you need to get that, to qualify that, has dropped considerably. And they bring into things how many million streams and stuff, but it's not the same as selling millions of physical products.
So since you said that, Tim, one of our little topics here, and this is in 2000, so it's not even talking about, the 70s, the 80s, and the 90s, the high, when buying albums was at the top of its peak, but it says Americans bought 943 million CDs during 2000. Since then, CDs have fallen out of fashion, and 45.5 million were sold in 2019. So it went from 943 million to 45 million.
But there was an uptick. I think it is in 2021.
Oh yeah, because it's back in fashion.
Yeah, and I love the CD format, and that is my legacy format of choice, if you like. But what's happening is a lot of people who collected vinyl records or have been collecting vinyl records. One, the price has got absurd. Mm-hmm. And secondly, the quality control is not there. Now, if you're just buying them to hang them on the wall, just have them as a keepsake, or you have one of those little Crosley record players and you don't really care too much about the quality, it's fine. But for people who are like hi-fi enthusiasts who maybe have a really nice turntable, a really nice sound system, you spend $40, $50 on a record and you play it, and it's warped, and it's got crackles pressed in the plastic. Or the hole has been punched off center, and it's just so frustrating. So what's happening is a lot of people who are into the physical music collection have actually gone back to buying CDs because they work every time. You never ever get a duff one, and they are so much cheaper.
So I'm looking across the room because my Crosley record player is open directly in front of me, and it's got the Dirty Dancing album in it. And Tim's right. I actually was talking to Tim about this. So I have made, and I do have some vinyl still because it's still it's still nice to have. There's certain albums that sound good on vinyl, different things. We've discussed this. It's not my favorite medium, but I do have it, and I have vinyl. It's interesting to me, and I asked him about this, and he actually had a good answer. I don't remember what your answer was. It was something about the material. But I bought, I think it was, I don't know. I'm just going to name a random band. Let's say the Rolling Stones. I don't remember what album it was. No, it was Pink Floyd. I bought Pink Floyd, and it was one of the original albums. And it was like, original. I got off of eBay. I looked for it. I wanted to hear it it's one of those albums you have to hear from point A to point B. And the quality of the album. So like when you picked it up, it felt different. It was heavier. The material was like, it just felt more pristine, and it came in such good quality. But then I had bought 2 or 3 recent albums. I think one of them was the Guardians of the Galaxy. I returned it. And then I have an original Dolly Parton album, and it was in great condition. But then I went back and bought this Dirty Dancing album that I'm looking at. So the newer ones with the Guardians of the Galaxy and the Dirty Dancing, and the quality of them versus the Dolly and the Pink Floyd were just so different. The albums themselves physically feel different when you hold them. And I've had bad luck with them being warped when I get the newer ones. Like I was saying with the Guardians of the Galaxy and the Dirty Dancing. I hit my keyboard, everybody, if you heard that. But they're just like, it feels like the plastic or whatever they're using. It felt so much cheaper.
I mean, certainly with old vinyl, what you are getting is a pure analog source. Before the digital age kicked in, sort of in the early 80s, what you had was analog recording, analog mastering, and then analog onto a record. That's what Tim
told me last time we had this conversation.
So you're getting a complete analog signal path. And a lot of collectors prefer the older pressings for that reason. The other thing you have is that a lot of new vinyl was pressed on 180 gram, which is like much thicker. But you're right, the material that they press it on feels different. And I think it's probably, I don't know if it's because the new material they're using is cheaper or something like that. And certainly with regards to quality control, back then they were making a lot more of them.
Yeah.
And because it was the dominant medium, people wouldn't stand for poor quality. So
right.
after records were pressed, what they would do is they would quality control check them and then toss out the bad ones. Now, there's only a finite amount of record pressing plants. And the record companies don't want to pay for the quality control piece because it costs more and it slows the process down. So they just want to knock these things out as quick as they can, knowing that they can make a fast buck for $50. Also knowing that there's a very large proportion of people who will never, ever play them.
Mm-hmm. And to be fair, I will say I don't play mine that often, Tim. Actually, weirdly enough, mine has come in handy because I keep my record player open. It's sitting out at all times, so I could put an album on if I wanted to. I've really used it when the power's went out and I had no other search. You know what I mean? And Tim actually gave me a bunch of albums that he failed to sell on eBay. Thank you, The Village People, and a few other things sitting over there that Charlie was listening to the other day. But I mean, I will say I'm not one who's like big. I don't always constantly be like, let's put that, on the on the record player. I don't know. And then you have to think about, like how to put it on, make sure you're on the right side, the A, the B side, put it on the outside, make sure it's on the right, is it fast, is it slow, because you have to adjust it and stuff. It's just a little bit more work that goes into it. But yeah, I know I went back and forth naming different albums on that back in time, but it just comparing, I was just thinking about my Dolly one and comparing that to the Dirty Dancing one that's sitting in the record player. It felt physically different. Just a very interesting thing. All right. So, here's a fact that I don't know if Tim knows, but I wouldn't be shocked if he knows it because it's two things he's familiar with. Metallica shut down Napster over music rights.
Oh, this is this well-worn trope of Lars Ulrich being angry about music being stolen when, their entire band was launched by people trading tapes.
And the irony is it's exactly that. So Tim's very well. Metallica sued the early filing sharing platform Napster for illegally distributing copyrighted records in 2000. The court ruled Metallica's favor, forcing Napster to remove copyrighted tracks from its system. The company went bankrupt and music industry relationship with the internet was charged forever per The Verge, which is where this was, citing it. But it's a very known thing that happened, and Metallica is generally known to be a little aggressive about that, I think. And so that's what's interesting with the whole thing. They came out recently with the TV show. What's the TV show that their song was in?
Stranger Things.
They were very open and like, let the new generation know us and stuff. I thought that was a very interesting thing for them because it's not really been their history. But I agree with them. I don't like gatekeeping music.
Because there was a payday into it, and they were like officially licensing the song,
Just like they got back together, Tim, and hell did not freeze over.
Exactly. I'm sure Lars was very happy and he went out and bought some more fine art or something that he invests in. But the funny thing about Napster is that this is what was supposed to happen with Napster. They were going to come out with something that could possibly never make any money, and it was going to disrupt the whole music industry. And they were expecting CBS or Warner Brothers or something to buy them, as is how it normally works. Like someone will come up with a great concept, then Apple will buy them, or someone will come up with a great concept and burn through a load of money, and then Google will buy them, and that's how it works. So they came up with this thing thinking Warner Brothers was going to buy them, but no, it didn't happen. All these people sued them instead. But in hindsight, I've read a lot of articles about this. That point was the downfall of the music industry as it stands. What they should have done is not sued them. They should have gone into business with them.
Yep. They would have been smart too, because it was the start of a lot of things that happen in the world, right? Like all the changes, and like you said, it's a trajectory that changed everything.
Absolutely. And I mean, and where you are now is you have your streaming platforms, which from a consumer's perspective, you pay $10 or £10 or however much those streaming services cost, and you get this huge catalogue of music that you can listen to whenever you like, though you never own it, but you're just renting it in effect. And from a consumer perspective, that's perfect. But the flip side of that is that the musicians are making nothing. You can have millions and millions of streams, and it's, $2,000 you're making off it. And that's why concert tickets are so expensive, because the whole balance of where the money is made has had to go back into touring and merchandise.
So one of the facts on here was, I'm trying to find it. There's one that was saying on average musicians make Let's see here. It was like $30 some an hour or something. It's not a lot at all. I gotta find it. Hold on. I skipped past it because we've talked about it a little bit, but since you're bringing it up, I want to talk about it. It was basically that on average, musicians make like 30. Let's see here. Sorry, I'm finding the original because I skipped it. I didn't want to bring it up, but now that he said it, it's probably on this one. Yeah, it's like $30.27 an hour.
Well, I can tell you I make considerably less than that.
I mean, I do.
If you bear in mind, like my gig last week, I set off from the house at 2:00. I got home at 2:30 a.m.
How much did you make?
Well, this was actually I'm exclusively revealing some local band maths here. So this was a very well-paid gig, typically, and a very keen tip jar because we played in a place in Smith Mountain Lake where there's a lot of people who probably done very well. So the tip jar was very keen as well. So I walked away there with, I made $210, $200. It was something like that. So it's actually a pretty keen payday.
Does not equal $30 an hour.
However, I'm approximately 12 hours into this day. So let's have a look. $200 divided by 12.
Tim didn't even make minimum wage.
It's $16 an hour.
Well, you made minimum wage, technically.
But, I do it because I like it. I do it for nothing.
Yeah,
so
I was going to say, I don't think you're doing it for the money. Anyway, so, but if it was your only career, that's not a lot to make considering all the things they have to do it. So this one is one that I am surprised I didn't know. Tim may know this. This is a favorite artist of both of ours. We have spoken depth about this person. This is one Dolly Parton. She supposedly wrote Jolene and I Will Always Love You in the same day.
Yes, I am very familiar with that. I have. I knew that because she wrote "I Will Always Love You" as a goodbye song to Porter Wagner.
So she became a billionaire in the same day. Exactly,
but she wrote them both on. I did know that she wrote them both on the same day.
Her exact quote was, "That was a good day of songwriting." She said, "I mean, that sounds exactly like her." All right, we're getting to the end of it, but. Did you know, this is just something I thought was interesting. It's not really it is music, but it's not really anything we would know. Did you know Taylor Swift was named after James Taylor?
I didn't know that.
There you go. I just thought that was an interesting fact.
I do know that Taylor Swift plays a Taylor guitar.
Well, I did not know that.
I would imagine that she could probably play anything she wants, a Martin, a Guild, a Larive, whatever she wants, but I'm sure she probably plays a Taylor because it has her name written on it.
I mean, that's fair. Do what you got to do, Tim. Make it work.
Exactly. Well, I tell you what, Joy, if you do have one last little fact just to round out this episode.
All right, here we go. This is an Elvis fact. Elvis was actually a natural blonde, and his stylist decided to dye his hair in the 50s by mixing shampoo, vitamin capsules, aloe vera, and herbs together because he thought the dark looked better with his face. I did not know that. I mean,
it stood him in good stead. I didn't know that he dyed his hair his famous black Elvis color.
Because it matches his skin tone so well.
Yeah, but I couldn't think of Elvis with blonde hair. I don't know if it would work.
I have a picture of it. We'll screenshot it and put it on the thing. I'm looking right at it. It is blonde, but it's a dirty blonde. Does that make sense? Like he had a dark set blonde from the beginning. So while it's blonde, it's not like Dolly Parton blonde by any stretch. So maybe that helps.
Well, there we go. Would you look at that? What a fine fact
and what
to
everybody
round out this episode.
Doesn't know is Tim's hair is actually red naturally. We didn't tell anyone, but it's true.
Well, Tim's hair is naturally going grey, is what it's doing.
All right, bye.
See you later. Bye-bye.
To find me out another day to come.